tonight. Drama added to one constituency's by-election as the recently resigned Sask Party MLA criticizes the government and his own record. Also, the Prime Minister overhauls his cabinet, dropping 7 ministers and shuffling most portfolios. Plus, another Flair Airlines fiasco as a couple has to fight for a refund for a flight they paid for that didn't actually exist.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Wednesday, July 26th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. The by-election race in Regina Coronation Park has received some added drama after comments from the former MLA. Former Saskatchewan Party MLA Mark Docherty resigned to pursue other opportunities in February. He recently appeared on a Saskatchewan Politics podcast and made comments critical of the government and his record in Coronation Park. Adam Hunter explains.
Elected in 2011, Mark Docherty was a cabinet minister and speaker. He was a recent guest on the Scoop podcast and said the Saskatchewan Party's growth that works for everyone slogan is not reality. People are struggling, Docherty said. He also told a story of speaking to a Coronation Park resident before his resignation.
I talked to a constituent and they said, what have you done for us? Okay, what have you done? What's your legacy? What infrastructure has been put in place in regards to Coronation Park? And I went, and I looked, and I went, oh my God, the answer is going to be nothing.
This political scientist says the timing of Docherty's remarks is interesting and a boon to the NDP campaign.
This was a gift to the NDP on the doorstep, exactly. The guy you like, the guy you voted for, thinks things are going in the wrong direction.
Tom McIntosh says under both former Premier Brad Wall and Premier Scott Moe, past and present MLAs are rarely critical of the party.
For someone like that to come out and say, maybe we're not going in the right direction, maybe we're not representing our constituents the way we should be. Maybe, they have legitimate questions about what have you done for the riding. That's sort of unprecedented since the Sask Party took office.
The NDP candidate in Coronation Park, Noor Burki, lost to Docherty by 283 votes in 2020.
Well, Mark Docherty is a great person. I personally like him. He's a great MLA, was a great MLA, a great representative of our constituency as well. So if he say that the Sask Party growth is not working for everyone, and I think it doesn't work for my constituency as well. I'm running from the same constituency.
Burki came to Saskatchewan from Pakistan in 2003. The new Saskatchewan Party candidate, Riaz Ahmad, also immigrated from Pakistan to the province, arriving 10 years ago. He says the Saskatchewan Party is attracting people to the province.
It's due to the quite tremendous policies of the Sask Party government that invites people all around from the globe.
There are 5 candidates running in the by-election. Coronation Park has historically been one of the closest constituencies in the province. Prior to Docherty's win in 2011, the NDP held the seat for 25 years. Adam Hunter, CBC News, Regina.
Regina City Council has been given less than 24 hours notice for a special meeting tomorrow. Mayor Sandra Masters called it to deal with the homeless encampment outside City Hall. She wants council to provide direction on how it should solve the problem of people sleeping in tents outside City Hall. The camp popped up more than a month ago. A report being presented to councillors says it's peaked at 83 tents and 76 people. One of the volunteers who works at the camp says just focusing on the encampment misses the bigger issue.
They can tear these tents down and they can remove us all, but the problem will still remain unless they put serious money, time, and effort into addressing the problems that are facing us.
The report says there have been 20 drug overdoses at the camp, one of which was fatal. The city has spent $55,000 on that so far for things like security and what it calls maintenance and repair costs. The special meeting is set to begin at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The community of James Smith Cree Nation is being encouraged to stay inside with their doors locked for the second day in a row, while RCMP search for a man they believe is armed and dangerous. Melfort RCMP are searching for the driver of a stolen vehicle that has since been recovered. His name, Keenan Crawford Head. Police say if you see him, do not approach and call 911. The 34-year-old man is one of the victims of the mass stabbing that stunned James Smith Cree Nation nearly a year ago. Today, RCMP are conducting patrols in the community, and local leadership have requested people only leave their homes for essential medical needs or supplies. Hundreds of parcels of public Crown land are being sold to private interests by the provincial government. First Nations say they aren't being consulted, even when it affects their land claims or hunting rights. Leaders have long accused the government of being secretive, but now they have a new weapon in their fight. Jason Warwick explains.
They started these land sales without our knowledge.
Onion Lake Cree Nation Chief Henry Lewis says the provincial government is privatizing land all around his community. For the first time, Lewis and other leaders can see what's happening, thanks to new maps created by a First Nations research centre in Saskatoon. They show individual regions like that of Onion Lake Cree Nation. The light and dark purple areas represent existing reserve lands, or land that's under negotiation for the First Nation. The green squares represent public Crown lands that the government has sold to private interests, such as ranchers, farmers, resource companies, or developers. Lewis says the First Nation has a right to know what's going on, but the government is keeping them in the dark.
That was the whole problem. They wouldn't sit down with us.
Lewis says this violates their treaty and constitutional rights to be consulted and to use that public land for traditional purposes.
And the biggest concern is that, our hunting and trapping and gathering, they're being impacted by all the land that's being sold.
The maps from the First Nations Natural Resource Centre of Excellence also give a comprehensive view of Crown sales across the province. Hundreds of sales and leases from Meadow Lake down to Estevan.
Crown lands were set aside early on to ensure that the Crown was able to live up to their treaty agreements so that we could hunt, fish, trap, gather, and practice our treaty rights, and there are Crown lands to do so. So it really becomes extremely concerning when, at an alarming rate, Crown lands, Crown minerals are being sold off.
Agriculture Minister David Merritt was not available for an interview, but they did send an email on his behalf. They said that they do respect treaty and constitutional rights and consult on land sales when appropriate. But people like Watney and Lewis say that those words don't match their actions, and they're prepared to take this fight, armed with their maps, to court if necessary. Jason Warwick, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Saskatoon City Council has found some ways to make its budget shortfall a little less daunting. But already a move to hike parking fees is unpopular with some. Going into a special meeting yesterday, the city faced a potential $51 million funding gap for 2024. Council endorsed several recommendations that would bring that down to $29 million if it wants to bump up parking fees by 50 cents an hour from $2 to $2.50. That's expected to generate an extra $1 million in revenue. It also agreed on an additional 15-cent convenience fee to use its parking app.
That's a lot. That is a lot for parking downtown. Given if the new entertainment center is coming down here, people are going to need parking spots and people rely on paid parking. So that's a little bit of an increase. But I guess it'll also push people towards using public transit instead.
Annoyed because you have to press the button to increase like every 15 minutes. Yeah. And it's ridiculous. It could at least be an easy experience if it's going to cost me more money.
I'll pay the extra 50 cents, but it is kind of a pain because our taxes are going up, everything is going up. And yeah, they're not dealing with the problems that need to be dealt with, I think, in this city.
The city also proposed delaying some spending like slowing down road and sidewalk maintenance. Even with these changes, taxpayers would still face a 10% property tax hike next year. Another special meeting will be held next month to explore more options. A traveler's nightmare, buying plane tickets and showing up at the airport to discover there's no flight. Not that it's canceled, it doesn't exist. And then you have to fight for a refund. Nicole Williams has that story.
It's far from how Jamie Christensen thought his trip to Florida would go. He and his wife bought 2 tickets from Flair Airlines back in March. Direct return flights from Ottawa to Fort Lauderdale for $600 total. But it was only until months later, after the couple packed their bags and arrived at the Ottawa airport the day of their trip, that an agent told them there was no such flight.
I was completely flabbergasted by it. I couldn't believe that this is where we were with this. I never thought that I would have to, if I bought a ticket from them, I would have to call them up and say, hey, I have a ticket from you guys. Can you verify this, please? Or are you just pulling my leg and there is no flight here?
Christensen says he and his wife ended up booking flights with another airline, costing nearly triple the amount of the original tickets and taking hours longer. The couple filed a formal complaint and at first were denied a refund. Flair representatives told them they were never charged for the flights, and Christensen says that's not true. He has the receipt and credit card statement to prove it.
I understand that these things happen. It's unfortunate that it happened to us, but I'm just kind of expecting that they would take accountability for it and say, yeah, we messed up and we're going to make this right for you. But they just have no desire to do that.
The incident comes as Flair grapples with its reputation as the worst airline in dealing with passenger complaints, according to federal data from the Canadian Transport Agency.
There really isn't any oversight, any regulatory oversight or any administrative oversight about the actual selling practices associated with carriers such as Flair or any.
This expert says cases like this aren't common, but they do happen. He says low-cost carriers tend to preemptively sell seats for a trip before confirming a flight and then cancel if they haven't sold enough.
Flair Airlines did eventually return the couple's money and are apologizing to them for any inconvenience experienced. It says it made a mistake in this case, though it didn't explain how it was made. Nicole Williams, CBC News, Ottawa.
What a perfect summer day in downtown Regina. Bright blue sky, hot dogs on the barbecue, and lots of goodies up for grabs at the farmers market. It is much more pleasant out there now that the heat warnings have dropped off. Looks like you might even have an evening where you can sleep with the windows open. Ethan will explain in his forecast after the break. Stay with us. A Saskatchewan Roughriders heading home to the East Coast this weekend. Kicker Brett Lother is from Nova Scotia and will play in front of his family and friends on Saturday at Touchdown Atlantic against the Argos. Lother played in last year's loss to Toronto and Wolfville, Nova Scotia, and had a huge cheering section. He says he expects a couple hundred supporters in the crowd this weekend, but the 32-year-old says this year he's thinking about the recent challenges with fires and floods in the province.
I mean, the football game, I guess, a little bit secondary right now, but hopefully for the people that need it, maybe it can take their mind off things. Maybe it's something that's fun in Halifax and can kind of turn things around, but obviously it's tough. I'm a little ignorant speaking on what's going on out there when I live out here now, but I get lots of feedback still from everyone back home, so I don't want to speak too much or pretend like I know everything, but just trying to stay in touch with everyone and just trying to lift their spirits any way I can. And
Lother played his first ever game in Touchdown Atlantic in 2013. He also played in the first CFL regular season game in Nova Scotia last year for the Riders.
This weather update is brought to you by Capital GMC Buick Cadillac. Used car savings is on now.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. So much better without the heat warnings.
Oh, isn't it? The heat warnings have dropped off throughout much of the province. They are, though, still in place in a portion of Saskatchewan. Let's take a look at that right now. We have, well, look at that. Speak it into existence. Gone, just like that. No more heat warnings in southeastern Saskatchewan. This thing is playing tricks on me from not working yesterday to just getting rid of things today. What we do still have in effect, but has not disappeared, is the severe thunderstorm watch that is in place for portions of east central Saskatchewan, including the Melfort, Tisdale, Nipawin area, as far south as Kamsack, Kenora. Have seen a few storms moving through this afternoon, and that has dropped some temperatures in spots, but really really in southeastern Saskatchewan where you were under the heat warning, it is still warm, close to 30 degrees. But look at this temperature drop off only into the upper teens in northwestern Saskatchewan. I'll tell you why in a second. But first, a quick recap of some more of the heat warnings that we saw yesterday, or the heat records that we broke yesterday. Coronach getting up to 36.4. Last Mountain Lake also smashing your old temperature record, along with Wynyard. Weyburn and Watrous, some older temperature records being broken there. What's causing the thunderstorms, when we turn our attention to that, is this low pressure system that is on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. And we are seeing a few cells moving through, but they're really severe in Manitoba. Just in the corner of your screen there, you can see a tornado warning in effect, and that orange is a tornado watch. Another area of low pressure bringing through some heavy rain to northern Saskatchewan, firing up a few storms around the Prince Albert area, and that's what's dropping temperatures as well. And with all that low pressure around, we're seeing quite a bit of wind too, especially in the south today, close to around 50 kilometer an hour gusts there. Now, the rain going to continue as we head through the night tonight in the north, and as we get into tomorrow, that low pressure system begins to diminish, but still some non-severe pop-up showers and thunderstorms possible in especially the northern grain belt, maybe portions of the Churchill region. High pressure begins to move in behind this, so we should begin to see some clearing after a little bit more rain in west central portions of the province. For the north, over the next 24 hours here, probably another 5 to 10 millimeters at most is what we're looking at. Centered kind of around La Ronge, eastward to around Pelican Narrows and Sandy Bay. Winds calming down over these next couple of days as we see that low pressure begin to move out. And then as high pressure takes over as we head into Friday, Saturday, those winds definitely beginning to diminish as well. In terms of our rest of our forecast here in Regina and our temperatures, we'll see a bit of a roller coaster here. Tomorrow, another pleasant day, less of a wind gust, but then temperatures just below seasonal for this time of year. And then increasing as we head through the weekend, we get some clearing. And those overnight lows starting to creep back up as well. Saskatoon, much cooler over these next few days as that system is quite near to you where we're seeing the rain in the north. So low 20s, barely even cracking 20, but then things heating up again with a chance of showers possible on Monday. So windows may be open tonight, Sam, for a little bit of relief, but come later on next week, it looks like that'll be changing.
And I'm just going to speak $1 million into existence over the break.
Yeah, that's right. Let's just put it all out there right now.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
When Mick Jagger sang "Time Is On My Side" in 1964, he had no idea how right he was. Today, the Rolling Stones frontman turns 80. The Stones are still recording. The band toured last summer. They're one of the best-selling bands in the world with more than 240 million albums sold. Jagger's also fathered 8 kids, the last one when he was 73. We'll be back after the break. The federal cabinet looks very different today after a dramatic shakeup by the Prime Minister. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
What a team. I am so excited.
After 8 years in power, Liberal Prime Minister Justin Trudeau pitched his same message to Canadians with a newly recast cabinet.
This is a moment where putting forward the strongest possible team with fresh energy and a range of skills that are going to be able to continue the really important work.
7 rookies have been added to the roster, among them Toronto MP Richie Valdez, the first Filipina appointed to cabinet in Canadian history.
Mabuhay. I, Richie Valdez, do swear.
Several backbenchers are getting major cabinet gigs. Arif Virani is Canada's new Minister of Justice. That job left empty after David Lametti was completely dropped from cabinet in a surprise move.
I've not spoken to David Lametti yet, but I will be speaking with him very, very soon.
Toronto MP Gary Annan Desangari is the new Minister of Crown Indigenous Relations. Jenna Sudds, a former Ottawa City Councillor, will head up the family's portfolio.
I, William Sterling Blair.
Most existing ministers are also getting a job change. Bill Blair becomes Minister of National Defence. Anita Anand moves from that post to President of the Treasury Board. Mark Holland will be in charge of health. The housing portfolio, now combined with infrastructure, has a new minister in Sean Fraser.
We're going to be working very hard to ensure that we're looking at infrastructure projects and housing projects, not in isolation from one another, but looking at how people actually live their lives.
Dominic LeBlanc remains Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs, but will also take on the troubled public safety portfolio, left vacant by Marco Mendicino, who was also turfed by Trudeau.
The one minister who was responsible for these failures didn't get moved, and that minister is Justin Trudeau.
A new poll released today shows the Conservative opposition has a 10-point lead over the governing Liberals. Many of these new cabinet ministers come from ridings that could be key battlegrounds in the next election. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
A woman from BC ended up losing a breast because of a mistaken cancer diagnosis. A jury concluded her doctor was negligent. But as Zara Premji reports, the woman's fight is far from over.
My story started 7 years ago.
Well-known dog groomer, wife and mother Elena Ivanova says time stood still when she was diagnosed with the rare form of aggressive breast cancer in 2016.
I was very scared and I had this fear of death.
Court documents claim her surgeon said the only option was a full mastectomy right away. She was still recovering, then mentally preparing for radiation and chemotherapy when her oncologist dropped another bombshell.
Because I was told I don't have cancer and I have never did cancer. And diagnosis was incorrect.
Her breast removed unnecessarily.
If you don't have it, how you can be told you do have cancer, yeah?
Ivanova says she still lives with pain and weakness.
There was a verdict in Elena's favor at the end of a 3-week jury trial.
A BC Supreme Court civil jury awarded her $400,000 in damages from Dr. Robert Wolber, the pathologist who was found to have wrongfully diagnosed her with cancer. But so far, Ivanova has only seen a fraction of that. Dr. Wolber is appealing the jury's verdict. He has not responded to requests from CBC News for comment. But in response to Ivanova's lawsuit, he argues everything he did was appropriate and up to standards.
It's challenging to pursue an action where the defense is so well funded.
Ivanova says on top of hefty bills for court proceedings, along with pain and suffering, the mastectomy has done long-lasting damage to her physical and mental health.
I don't feel like a normal woman anymore. Yeah, I had to throw away all my dresses, what I really love to wear.
But Ivanova hopes her story can help others.
And ask for second opinion, for third opinion, and ask doctors to explain everything because it's their job.
Now she'll have to wait at least another year before finding out a potential verdict of the appeal. Zara Premji, CBC News, Burnaby.
And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
Looking at a clear night in Regina and southern Saskatchewan. Starting out a little on the warm side, around 17 degrees. The winds will be fairly light from the north and then not changing much as we head through the morning. Past couple of days here, we've been well into the 20-degree mark as we wake up, but we'll be below that tomorrow. Sunny conditions, and still, though, as we head through the day tomorrow, looking for upper 20s once again. We'll be at 25 by the time we hit the noon hour. Those gusts from the northwest a lot lighter than we saw today. Saskatoon, again, looking at mainly clear skies tonight, around 15 degrees. In a similar situation here, 16 degrees tomorrow morning, but we're not going to be warming up much more than that. We'll be around 21 by the afternoon with a chance of some showers and some thunderstorms in there too, Sam.
All right. Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And that is it from us tonight. For news anytime, you can always head to cbc.ca/Sask or Saskatoon, or subscribe to CBC Saskatchewan's YouTube channel. Ethan and I will be back with more local news and weather tonight at 11. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.